Hello and welcome to episode number 100. Today is the 17th of February 2021 and welcome to Sree ji, my co-panelist. Namaskaram sir, and it's a great day in California today.
It's a wonderful day in Manhattan as well. We can see the sun trying to break out of the clouds. Very happy to be here on this 100th session, and hard to believe that we'll be crossing the 100th session today. It's been a good journey thus far, and thank all the people who have been part of the journey as well.
Absolutely. This would have not been possible if it was not for your unstinting support. There are many of you that we recognize from the comment section that you have been regulars right from the first episode, and we will strive to make this thing as much objective as possible, as much factual as possible. To start with, we have to give one disclaimer, which is that a statement attributed to a Japanese Nobel Prize winner, he has since said that he did not make that statement. And I think we referred to it yesterday about the coronavirus. So we will have to just quote him and say that looks like he did not make that statement after all. So let's move on to US news. Sir, the Democrats are trying to pass their own version of the stimulus bill. First question for you, sir, is it 1.9 trillion or is it a different number, higher or lower? And why are the Democrats trying to do this? Because I thought the Republicans also wanted to pass the bill.
Well, I think the 1.9 could turn out to be, somewhere between, 2 and 2.1. There may be some additional stuff that the Democrats may add on. What could be, the extending this to some illegal immigrants, the pro rata allocation to those who are above 150,000 or 75,000 individual, that is those who are in the $100,000 or $200,000 combined income. Elements such as that could be added, maybe a little more to the COVID relief, etc. And the House and Senate are in recess this week, but the House Budget Committee is working very feverishly to get this done, so that when they get back, they will be then in a position to draft it into a law and get it passed. The House has a razor-thin majority, a number of only 5 seats. And they want to make sure that they can pass this bill, which will have all these bells and whistles, without reliance on the Republican support. Last 2 bills they were able to pass when they had, I think if I'm correct, 12 to 15 seats majority in the House. That has dwindled right now. Right? I think 11 seats they have lost in the House elections, in the most recent elections last year. So I think that is working feverishly towards that. What we call as the resolutions that Republicans added in the Senate as it relates to illegal aliens, as it relates to $15, as it relates to some overseas funding, as it relates to extending this to everybody. All those things now have taken a backseat, right? So therefore, they're passing their bill, as was the case. So they just need to work. They also have this March 11th, March 14th deadline when the unemployment insurance expires. So they want to get this done before that lapses, because that affects again, close to 9 million people.
Now, President Donald Trump could be facing criminal probes in the states of Georgia, New York, and Washington, D.C. We will keep you posted as these cases start playing out. And Senator Johnson has said that Senator Mitch McConnell's outburst against President Donald Trump is not reflective of the entire party. And we also saw yesterday President Trump lashing out at Senator Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell, to me, has become a bit of an enigma. Can you please unravel what goes on in this man's mind? He votes to not impeach. At the same time, he also dresses down his ex-president. And even in the 4-year term, I was not very sure how comfortable he was working with Donald Trump as the president, sir.
Well, Mitch McConnell, has various constituencies that he needs to support, especially, for example, Mitt Romney's constituency that he needs to support. Then he has, those who are extreme right, he needs to support. Then you have Trump followers whom he needs to support. Then he has to assert his own leadership to say that he's the boss that he needs to satisfy. There is this unconfirmed rumors that he has business ties with China, but there's nothing confirmed. But more allegations whether he has to meet any kind of riders that go with it. So he is balancing all of these aspects. Now, what he has seen is he literally begged Donald Trump to help him to win his re-election from Kentucky. A recall between Kentucky and South Carolina, Lindsey Graham, there was close to somewhere between $75 to $100 million of money spent to oust them, right? And Trump stood by him and got him re-elected. And then suddenly he realized that Trump has lost the election. It's the time for him to assert. But what he did not understand is two factors. One, there is a tremendous mood swing in the Republican Senate and the House towards President Trump. That is, make America great again, if you have to use that phrase. And there is also growing and continued momentum of support for President Trump. Over 75% of the Republicans, grassroots level, support President Trump. So he's trying to, he has taken an opposite position, which is to say, whether he can kind of sustain. Also, he's a deal maker. He has historically worked with Biden, Schumer, and so on. He has a long history of working. He's not very comfortable with, running the agenda on his own, on a leadership basis, as per the dictum. This is where this is where the Democrats are far more united, notwithstanding the fact that you have this progressive agenda that has crept into the party. In my view, the House Democrats and Senate Democrats are far more united and cohesive relative to some factions that you see within the Republican Party.
It's very interesting that not long ago, one used to say the same thing about the Republicans, and now it appears that the Democrats have learned their lesson and they are more united. Now, one thing that I want all our viewers to, take away from this is, how is it that across the country, the Republicans were able to pick up so many seats in the House, and yet their president lost? We have several constituencies at the congressional level where Biden polled more votes than Trump, and yet the GOP congressman / woman won. So this is something that, I hope that Nancy Pelosi, when she constitutes the 6-1 commission, also inquires into this. Or I hope that the Republicans in both Congress and Senate demand that there be an election result commission of inquiry also. For sure, the United States as a country needs to have a uniform system of elections. What has happened now is a joke. I'm ashamed to say that I'm an American. And however, having said that, it is my utmost responsibility to make sure that it's a one man, one person, one vote. This needs to come across. As long as that doesn't happen, America will continue to be the laughing stock of the world every time elections come. Let's move on, sir. I'm done with my rant on this.
Could I pick up one specific strand following on, because we don't lose track, because you made some very telling point. There's one other important facet, which is namely, why is it Senator Harris, or now Vice President Kamala Harris, being targeted for impeachment, potential impeachment? Because Senator Lindsey Graham has stated they have opened up the Pandora's box and she could be the target. Apparently, this is something that there is this fund that has been formed called the Minnesota Freedom Fund. Many of the alleged rioters who have committed violent crimes and who have been arrested 1, 2, 3 times, as many as 3 times, have been released on bail using this fund which Senator Harris has touted. So effectively, the criminals have been let go on the basis of a fund where somehow there seems to be the Democratic hand, as well as Senator Harris's statement. So when they do this insurrection or the violence investigations, they must also do the violence investigation of the Antifa and BLM movement right around the country. I just wanted to add that point to the suggestion that you have had.
Well, I'll also add one more point to what you just said, sir, that you should look up who is representing one of the districts of Minnesota in the Congress and how this particular individual has been rewarded with plum posts, which we think is not deserving. And we leave it at that. You can give us comments on who I'm alluding to here, but let's move on. The decision by the Biden administration to shut down the Keystone Pipeline. Now, the South Dakota Senator is up in arms because the job losses are very palpable. And so this Keystone decision seems to have come like a bolt from the blue, because I don't remember reading this as a statement or a strategy in the presidential run-up before the election, sir.
No, I think that Keystone Pipe has been a very controversial. If you remember, under Obama, they did not allow this bill to be passed, notwithstanding many southern states touted for it. And also the Canadians were shouting from the top of the hill to get US endorsement, because it also creates an opportunity for them to further expand the trade. So the story therefore here is that it was very natural. It was very much in the election, which is ban fracking, ban this, ban that, ban all those stuff that is happening in the what you call the natural habitat, as well as the heritage lands and so on. So this was very much in the agenda. So therefore, what is not on the agenda was, South Dakota gets affected here, which is the leases that were granted, as well as the new offshore drilling that needed to happen both in the water as well as the land around the South Dakota coast. That has also been now kind of stalled. So it has significant impact to the economy in that region. That is why it has become such a contentious issue. Now, worse is that we have now power grid shutdowns, and we have rising energy prices. So there is an investigation that has been requested even for on both these fronts to find out how exactly remedial actions can be taken. So I think what you're beginning to see is, just by coincidence, unraveling of these two activities.
Thank you for that. And let's move on to the global news. Actually, I should add one more thing. The Utah Republican Party has refused to censure Mitt Romney. So now you are seeing a direct cleavage inside the Republican Party. You have the Romneyites, and also there's Liz Cheney, who also happens to be from Wyoming, which is a state very close to Utah. And you have those who want to follow Trump. And Mitch McConnell is probably somewhere 1 foot here, 1 foot there. We don't know unless he makes his stance clear. So this is also a very interesting development. Some other states also are considering not doing anything with the vote of their Republican senators in the impeachment proceedings, isn't it?
Yep, exactly. Well, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, Phil Sassy, nothing is going to happen to them. They have very strong entrenched kind of positions. Whereas Raymond Burr in North Carolina, I think it's clearly Raymond Burr, Portman, and then you also had Bill Cassidy.
Cassidy, right.
Cassidy, all of them have been censured.
And let's move on to global news now. Burma, what is happening there? Or Myanmar, we should say. What has happened, for those of you who have not been following it, is Aung San Suu Kyi has come back with a majority, and the military junta, which gave perhaps a sliver of power to her to run the last 5 years or so, has again clamped its authority. And against that, the West, especially United Kingdom and United States, have come down very hard on the military junta. And yesterday, the junta has said that they are going to conduct elections one more time. See, this reeks of something that I cannot really explain, because the previous election only nobody said anything about rigging or anything like that. So why should the military junta conduct another election? And more importantly, India has not spelt out its stand on Myanmar. All they have said is we can work with whoever is in power in Myanmar. Should India be doing playing a more active role, being the big brother in the area? What are your thoughts, sir?
With regard to India, I think Modi has spelled out his policy, which is called strategic flexibility. So, in other words, Myanmar is an important strategic border for India. I think both with the junta as well as the Aung Suu Kyi government, they have worked very proactively with many of these rebels and Rohingyas, who have been a big problem, especially the rebels who come from that side and then cause problems in the Northeast. So I think he is basically taking a neutral stance, but at the same time, rather than uttering something which could prove to be controversial. India has in most instances, has not made any provocative statements, especially under the Modi foreign policy. They've just remained what you call benign and saying that they will follow whatever the world view. Okay, so I think that's been the scenario with except in the case of China, which has consistently made incursions in the last 6 years. But even there, they have worked with the Chinese, and whereas in the case of the other nation with whom they have had problems from time immemorial is Pakistan, where they have been much more provocative or much more explicit in their positions. So you will not see much from India. As far as the conflict between junta and the Aung Suu Kyi government is, they personally feel that there's only the election controversy. Then there is also UN Human Rights Commission asking them to take back the Rohingyas. Whether there is a tussle between her and the junta on that facet. Plus, there are also some policy issues around the reforms that is taking place within Myanmar. Remember, Myanmar has been for long under the control of the junta. So therefore, they probably have their hands in pie in all aspects of the economy, and Myanmar is one of the up and coming economies, in the ASEAN region.
Thank you for that clarification. And the Chinese troops have moved en masse out of the Pangong Tso area. And this is considered something like a moral victory for India, because they have at least forced them to evacuate these regions. Some of the places, I don't know how many of you will remember, there was one area that they had occupied and they had actually painted the map of PRC, People's Republic of China, there to make it look as if it is there and their zone. And now that has been completely vacated. So there is a certain movement, and a lot of stories have been going in MSM about how India also has been forced to give up what is called as a strategic Kailash Heights, and why is India doing that, and so on and so forth. We came across an excellent interview, the link for which we will post in our website. You can on this YouTube video, you are welcome to take a look at that, because that has a much more factual, accurate, in my opinion, take on what is happening there. And I think people should look at all these information, not just rely on one source to come to your own conclusions. The next one is on the recent Greta Gate. That's how I like to term it. What has happened, and Delhi police has written to Zoom asking for details of a Zoom meeting that took place between Disha Ravi Matthews and Nikita Jacob and Greta Thunberg. This was supposedly a Zoom meeting, and all these were participating in that when they were drafting what is now called as the toolkit, which got accidentally spilled by Greta Thunberg, and that led to the revelation that this was a pan-world action that was taken. And let us wait and see how things play out. We'll keep you posted on the developments. Is there anything you would like to add on this, sir?
No, I only one point, sir, which is it's quite amazing to observe that when by accident the truth has come out, how there is benign indifference by the left publications. One can only imagine all the things that are happening where the truth has not come out in some form or the other, where there's only a lot of assumptions. Unless you do your discovery and investigations, you know. So it's very stunning to see that they don't just go back; they keep coming up wave after wave, wave after wave, unconcerned that they will not be punished.
Yes, and this needs to stop. And some of the people in the Democratic Party in the United States are also jumping on this bandwagon. We are also seeing now a resolution that has been drafted by some cities. This is not the anti-CAA. This is now beginning to talk about the farmers' bill, and we have to wait and see how this plays out. By the way, Indian COVID diplomacy continues. They have shipped vaccines now to Dominican Republic. There are many countries in the world that have no vaccine, zero, zip, nada. And India is stepping in to fill some of the voids. It is saying, okay, we may have a bit of a shortage, but we will try and do what we can. I think that is a very, very strong diplomatic move by India to try and capture the minds and hearts of people. And this is something that I cannot stress enough. It's a very, very good initiative. Let's move on, sir. Now let's go to market because we're already 20 minutes into our segment. Can you do a quick wrap up for us on what is happening in the markets today?
I think the markets are. The good news is the markets are showed some positive buoyancy yesterday, then tapered down on the news that there's still variants making its footprint, especially in countries like in Holland and so on. There's also news coming out from Asia, which is around what they call the trickle down effect. The velocity of vaccine flow is disproportionate to the velocity by which the disease is being contracted by people, plus the cure that is urgently needed. So some countries, have more, some countries have less. Some countries have just started. For example, Japan and Indonesia, etc. Indonesia is moving to phase 2. Japan has just started. South Korea is just moving into, picking up the acceleration in terms of the vaccines. So I think what you're beginning to see is the markets are very much driven by the factor of how exactly the world is going to deal with, treating COVID. That's the only way it can open up. On the most of the uptick that has happened on account of two factors: almost near certainty of the stimulus, and obviously the second is there's a natural flow-on effect from on the earnings side, because as one can call it, there is cheap cash that's available in the market, which doesn't impair the balance sheets for those who borrow to run their businesses. So that's the market uptick. Bitcoin continues to mount. It crossed the $51,000 mark. By way of the price point. So very much it's slowly inching its way as one of the hedge currencies. There's also a report which is to say that this blockchain bit currency mechanism could be used in state of Nevada to create a dedicated city. One of the guys, I forget his name, the CEO, and he's gone one level more, which is to say he wants to establish his own local government in that kind of self-managed city. So this is how sometimes we go to the extremes in the United States. And all this is causing an uptick in the movement of the Bitcoin. So that is the news from the markets. The Bitcoin, the COVID, of course, we covered yesterday the energy prices. So those are the kind of things that are making their presence.
Lastly, I forgot to add about what is happening in the state of Texas. When you said that somebody wants to have their own independent local government, it struck me that there have been calls one more time for the independence of Texas. And overall, Sridharji, what happened during the deep freeze in Texas And what is really the challenge now? Because Texas, for the large parts, is snowed in. There is basic problem about getting electricity. Power is down, and even other basic things like propane tanks and other things are also in short supply. How did things come to this?
Well, things have been brimming, and Texas has major challenges that impacts Texas, right? One is the border problem. The border police, Customs and Border Police have said that there will be a five-fold increase in illegal immigrants and causing security. That's number one. The second, that is also problematic for Texas, is this whole energy situation as far as the oil. Houston is the energy headquarters of the world, so it has implications. Number two. The third, the power grids, United States, is probably as backward as any because they haven't done anything across the country. They're not only susceptible to cyber attacks, but the infrastructure has not been developed, and which is the reason why you have this what you call as a ding dong effect. When everything is normal, it works. The moment you have a snowstorm and a freeze, you have power shutdowns. When Texas, that usually does not get snow, so it has had snow. So I think so. That's the third. The fourth is that there is a growing belief that the federal fine agreement that exists between federal and state in terms of number of things, including Obamacare, including $15 minimum wage, including right to work. Many of these facets contravenes with the Texan law. So they are saying that the federal national overreach is not something that they accept. Okay, so that is the fourth. Then they have this issue around the elections, where you saw many of these borderline states changing rules at will, while Texas is saying you are holding us to one aspect of the constitutions while you are holding the others to different. This was contested by Attorney General Paxton himself. So you have that. Then to put the nail in the coffin, they care for the flag. Mark Cuban saying that, hey, we will not be playing national anthem anymore in the basketball games. Making that statement from Dallas is not helping the case either. So when you put all these things together, Texas is saying, hey, why the hell do I need to? Because I can't enforce anything. So therefore, I'm better off to be on my own and maybe mount a Texan flag and basically say everybody follows the rules. I think that's what is driving Texas. And Texas has always been at the forefront of these kind of pro-conservative agenda.
And Mark Cuban is the owner of the NBA team Dallas Mavericks. And as always, thank you very much, Sridharji. And we'll be back tomorrow bright and early with news of tomorrow's news today. And we hope to see you all, and we hope to see your continued support. We have now started recently a join membership option, and I highly encourage each and every one of you to consider joining us. That way you don't have to make an extra effort to do a donation. You can pick whatever price range is comfortable for you, and we thank you for that. And as always, thank you very much, and we will see you again tomorrow. Namaskar.
Namaskar, and thank you so much, and thanks again for your continued support.